From the Grayman Briefing, this is a summary of recent developments regarding the Second Amendment, cybersecurity, protests, supply chain disruptions, national security, law and order, free speech, censorship, government oversight, and more. Now, for your situational awareness, Super Essie will be reading out the latest update. Get briefs sent in real time at graymanbriefing.com. That's Gray with an A. Let's get into it.
We've got some important developments in this week's brief. This includes attempts coming out of Europe to censor Americans and our social media outlets, and major conservatives being labeled as terrorist threats by the federal government, while a record number of actual terrorists cross the border. But first, let's look at a summary of recent civil unrest across the U.S. and in some cases abroad. On July 23rd, pro-Palestinian protests in Capitol Hill inside the Cannon House office building's rotunda. This escalated into a riot. The protest, organized by a Day of Rage, or at least promoted as a Day of Rage, ahead of the Israeli Prime Minister's address to Congress. This resulted in over 200 arrests as rioters attempted to break into U.S. representatives' offices. Rioters wore red, waved Hamas flags, and replaced U.S. flags with Palestinian flags. The next day, more than 6,000 pro-Palestinians marched through the streets, disrupting congressional proceedings and vandalizing public property, including the Freedom Bell. In Michigan, Hancock, an anti-Trump extremist vandalized vehicles that displayed MAGA and pro-police stickers like those thin blue line stickers. He later ran over a Trump supporter with an ATV. The Trump supporter was an elderly victim. He was just putting up a pro-Trump sign in his own yard when this suspect drove him over after pulling up those signs. Then he came back and drove him over. The suspect was identified as a 22-year-old male. He fled the scene and later killed himself. The White House National Security Advisor revealed that Iran is funding and encouraging some of these pro-Palestinian protests in the U.S. In West Palm Beach, Florida, and nearby areas, pro-Palestinians marched during a visit by the, again, Prime Minister of Israel to meet with Trump in Mar-a-Lago. In Philadelphia, PA, 500 communist activists associated with the Revolutionary Communists of America marched while wearing red and displaying hammer and sickle imagery. Meanwhile, in Portland, street takeovers led to multiple arrests, with law enforcement continuing efforts to suppress these dangerous street takeovers. In Montgomery, Alabama, a non-binary or transgender adjacent Antifa affiliate pleaded guilty to charges of malicious use of an explosive and possession of an unregistered destructive device. The extremist detonated an explosive device outside the Alabama Attorney General's office back in February, advocating political ideologies and opposing the AG's pro-life stance. In Detroit, pro-Palestinians protested at the Michigan Victory 2024 rally, where Vice President Harris held a campaign event. Protesters claimed the, quote, blood of our martyrs has accumulated on the hands of Kamala Harris. In Charlotte, North Carolina, 14,000 Trump supporters rallied outside of the Bojangles Arena at a campaign rally there. While similar rallies took place in various states, Vice President Harris also held multiple smaller rallies during the same period. In Ashburn, Virginia, an unidentified suspect broke into the Trump for President 2024 campaign office, which also serves as the headquarters of the Virginia's 10th District Republican Committee. The suspect was described as a white male, stole unspecified items, and he was later identified, and warrants have been issued, and he's been arrested, it looks like 30 plus times in primarily California and a couple in Florida. And let's move overseas for a second here. Riots by anti-mass immigration activists, primarily native-born Brits, continue in the UK following a mass stabbing spree that was originally claimed to be committed by a migrant. The riots primarily are against the influx of Muslims. They involve both property destruction and targeting of government buildings. Muslim mobs are also rioting, in most cases focused at disrupting these anti-immigration protests. The Muslims are committing violence against other persons, while the anti-immigration protests are focused more on property and their actual statements. The government's response has been criticized for actually being more severe than their handling of BLM and pro-Palestinian protests. Okay, let's move into supply chain and labor force. Fertilizer prices have surged due to the global energy crisis, supply chain disruptions, and geopolitical tensions. The rising cost of natural gas, critical for ammonia production, combined with increased transportation costs and tariffs, has significantly strained the agricultural food supply chain. Farmers are facing higher costs, leading to disruptions and increased prices for food products. The Red Cross has declared a national emergency due to a 25% decrease in blood supply, marking the worst shortage in a decade. The shortage is attributed to a drop in donations and increased demand for blood products, impacting hospitals' ability to perform surgeries and treat patients. Also, meanwhile, in Florida, hospitals are facing a critical blood shortage following a cyber attack on One Blood. That's the primary blood supplier for the state. Outreach and government-operated food banks in 13 states are allegedly facing increased food insecurities after these states declined federal aid over the summer. This decision has sparked debates on the role of federal assistance in addressing hunger and poverty, particularly in states led by Republican governors. Increased freight costs and container shortages are reportedly disrupting global trade recovery. The rise in shipping expenses and limited availability of containers are causing delays and increased costs for businesses worldwide. These challenges are disrupting supply chains, making it difficult for companies to meet demand and maintain inventory levels. The global chip shortage persists, initially triggered by COVID-19 factory shutdowns and prolonged by surging demand and geopolitical issues. This shortage is affecting the production of electronic devices, automobiles, and other goods, driving up prices and causing significant delays. Also, make sure you guys tune in to next week's broadcast. We're going to talk about a potential strike happening October 1st that's going to affect 6 of America's 10 largest ports. But we'll talk about that next week. Moving into censorship, bias, and privacy. Meta's Instagram offers monetization features for content creators, but these can be revoked if the account shares content that violates the platform's policies. IG enforces narrative control by warning and then removing these features from accounts that post content conflicting with political narratives they support. So basically, larger accounts, if you want to make any money, you have to post only what Instagram wants you to post. Smaller accounts, they say post whatever you want, we're just not going to pay you. And they can't really, this is on things that they can't outrightly censor because it's so obvious censorship. So instead, they just pay you to post what they want. And of course, if you're more interested in that, check out the briefing at graymanbriefing.com. They kind of go into detail about that one. Elon Musk's social media platform X has filed an antitrust lawsuit against a group of advertising companies for allegedly conspiring to damage X's business by pulling their ads in a coordinated manner. This legal action highlights ongoing tensions between platforms that do not support leftist narratives and major advertisers. The European Union's Internal Marketing Commissioner issued a warning to Elon Musk regarding his legal obligations under the EU's Digital Service Act to prevent hate speech on X. This was ahead of that big interview between Musk and Trump. Basically, the EU wanted Trump to censor parts of that interview. The interview, which was held on August 12th on the Spaces audio feature of X, experienced technical delays due to a suspected massive DDoS cyber attack, but when this was first wrote, it wasn't confirmed yet. Musk responded to the EU's warning with a dismissive meme suggesting he would absolutely disregard those legal obligations to censor Trump. Several states have passed laws to combat AI-generated content and deepfakes related to the elections, requiring clear labeling of such content and setting penalties for misleading practices. States like Florida, Hawaii, New York, and others have implemented these regulations to ensure transparency in political advertising. Some of these states are actually going to arrest and imprison people who post deepfakes related to the election, and also it's grounds for removal of a candidate if that candidate shares one of these deepfakes. So if Trump or Harris shares a video that's supposedly deepfaked in some of these select states, they'll be removed and citizens there won't be able to vote for them. Meta has agreed to pay $1.4 billion to settle a lawsuit filed by Texas. The lawsuit accuses Meta of using facial recognition technology to collect biometric data from Texans without their consent, of course, violating the state privacy laws. And back to the United Kingdom, the UK's Office of Communications, or Ofcom, has warned social media platforms to remove content related to the ongoing civil unrest, particularly those involving Muslim mobs and anti-immigration protests. The government claims that these videos might incite violence and has taken steps to enforce the censorship. And once all portions of this new law they've just passed comes into play, they'll just make these social media outlets remove the content. Don't want those riots on TV, I guess. Moving into national security, the U.S. House Judiciary Committee released findings revealing that between 2021 and 2023, at least 99 illegal immigrants on the FBI terrorist watch list were released into the U.S. after first being arrested by the Border Patrol at the southern border. Another 34 watch list immigrants remain in DHS custody. This finding has raised significant concerns about national security and the effectiveness of border control measures. Moving into global conflict, in Kursk, Russia, officials reported a Ukrainian border incursion involving drones and artillery units entering the Kursk region into the border city of Sudza on August 7th. Ukrainian forces reportedly captured that Russian city, which, as far as I know, is the first time they've entered Russia and captured a city. Moving into government oversight, former U.S. House of Representative and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard has reportedly been placed on the TSA's Quiet Skies program. This is a suspected terrorist watch list for airline travel. Gabbard, who's currently a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserves, claims the designation followed her critical comments about the Biden-Harris administration on broadcast news. So she says some bad things about Harris. The next week or the same week, she's placed on the terrorist watch list for the TSA. In Pittsfield, Massachusetts, the U.S. Secret Service reportedly made an unlawful entry into a local business. An agent, what appears to be an agent, walks up to a camera, tapes it over where you can't see. Then she opens the business to other people so they can use the business's bathroom. The business owner and the building's landlord stated they never granted permission for the use of their salon. It was a salon, like a nail salon, or might have been a hair salon. The USSS claims their actions were to secure the area ahead of a political event for Vice President Harris. The agency has since allegedly issued an apology, and the agency said the, quote, U.S. Secret Service works closely with our partners in the business community to carry out our protective investigative missions. The Secret Service has since communicated with the affected business owner, end quote. The incident involved an agent, like I said, covering with duct tape a camera. Then the agent used some tools to pick the lock and gain access to the salon. And after they were done at the salon, they just left the business unlocked. The business owner has only learned of the situation from EMS personnel who were directed by the lead Secret Service agent to use the bathroom without the owner's permission. Shifting now into cybersecurity, in Las Vegas, cybersecurity professionals and hackers attended the Hackers for Harris event at the DEF CON conference, rallying behind Harris's presidential campaign. The event was led by former Biden administration officials, including the former head of CISA, the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Agency. Basically, all these people here are opposing Project 2025 and Trump's policies, which they claim may defund cyber initiatives. Also, just as a reminder, Project 2025 and the Trump campaign were just recently hacked. And let's talk about one more hack. Former President Trump's campaign confirmed that its internal communications were hacked, including a dossier on VP running mate J.D. Vance. The hack was attributed to Iranian operatives involving the use of Microsoft services to access sensitive information. And this was confirmed in a Microsoft threat analysis report. Yeah, okay. That's it. We're going to stop here. There's so much more from this week's Grayman Briefing, but I don't think we're going to be able to have time to cover everything. I'm going to keep these things around 15 minutes or less. So if you want any more information, go to graymanbriefing.com. That's Gray with an A. Take care, guys. Be safe, be vigilant, and be aware.
Get unredacted, real-time briefings sent via email and through the Telegram and Signal apps by joining the Grayman Briefing.